All right. Yes, I am wearing a Falcons hat, but we are not talking about the Falcons. We are talking about a very, very exciting matchup. Week 7, the Washington Commanders are going down to AT&T Stadium, and they are playing the Dallas Cowboys right there in the heart of Dallas. So, guys, this is going to be a really interesting matchup. Washington actually has a minus 1.5 spread despite playing down in Cowboy land. And yeah, so like the topic is essentially to discuss the matchup, have some predictions of how this is going to go, and we'll see how it plays out. But because Evan is a Commanders fan, we're going to start off with Cy. Cy, what are your X factors, hot takes, and what's your prediction for this game?
Yeah, so typically going into a Cowboys matchup, the first thing I'm always looking at is how are the Cowboys going to, on offense, sustain how bad their defense is. And I think that's going to be the narrative all year because unlike Jerry Jones, who seems to think that this is the right defense and their pass rush is great and they could stop the run or whatever nonsense he spews week to week, I think it's very clear that their defense is the worst in football, if not one of the worst, and it will be the rest of the season. So with that in mind, the difference has been Dak and the offense. The games they've won, they've had to score astronomically more points than anyone else. It feels very similar to the Cincinnati Bengals of last year with Joe Burrow and company, right? And so going into this matchup, that's what I've been thinking about. Do I think the Commanders are going to score a lot of points? Yes, I do, because I think everyone will, and I think Jaden Daniels is an absolute stud. Here's my points of concern, though. Debo played last week, but you can tell he was banged up. He did the best he could with in a banged up situation. Not fully sure if Terry McLaurin is coming back.
Should be.
I think okay, so guarantee he's coming back. Krosky Merritt has been running better, but that offensive line, you would have thought that against the Chicago Bears, who have been very susceptible to the run, you would have seen a better rushing attack, and I don't think it was as good as I would have hoped. So I was kind of analyzing all that, and my thought was if the Commanders score over 30 points, I think they'll most likely win that game. But the concern for me this week, and this is as someone who wants to see the Commanders succeed, as a matter of fact, I would love to see them win the division. I think the Cowboys at home, with Dak at home, on multiple occasions, people have picked against the Dak Cowboys at home, like the Packers game, for example, and it has bit them. And I think in this example, I think the Cowboys are going to be able to keep up scoring-wise because the Commanders' defense does not scare me as presently constructed. They might get better as the season progresses. It might be an injury thing or it might be a scheme thing. But the way the Bears didn't even play that well and were still able to score a lot of points against Commanders' defense makes me think that the Cowboys are going to be able to overcome that. So I think it's going to be an absolute shootout, but I do think the Cowboys win in a very high-scoring game this week.
Yeah. I'm going to agree with Cy. I think that Dallas is actually going to win this game. And I think it's going to be a shootout as well. I mean, I think these two teams are very evenly matched. Terry comes back. This can be a fun matchup between him and Diggs on one side of the field. But, a lot of Commanders guys have been stepping up. Jalen Lane, the Hokie. Obviously, Krosky Merritt has been playing incredible. Jaden's back. He's kind of like back into his rhythm again. So, and Terry's going to obviously want to eat and make a statement with that big contract he just got. So, I think Washington is going to come out the gate swinging, but give me Dallas in a late one. I think it's going to be a field goal walk-off. So, Ev, well, I guess we'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be a tough game. I mean, a lot of the matchup and kind of data points like that are potentially concerning from a Commander's perspective. Like playing on Monday Night Football and having a short week is so real. Like that is a huge disadvantage, and the against the spread numbers support that. It does look like Terry's going to be back, which is huge. Sam Cosmi, our best offensive lineman who tore his ACL in the Lions game, should make his season return, which to Cy's point, the most disappointing thing about that Bears game, I completely agree, was their inability to like run the ball at a pretty high clip on the Bears run defense. But defensively, I think the most important thing for the Commanders is going to be able to generate a pass rush on Dak. I mean, I think if you look at the Commanders this season, they've alternated, good game defensively, bad game defensively, good game defensively, bad game defensively, and that trend has continued through last night. And usually the key point is being able to generate a little bit of a pass rush. Now, the problem is Dorrance Armstrong, our best pass rusher, might be out of this game, which would be huge to not have him available, especially since he is a former Cowboy, so it's a bit of a revenge game there. And then you think about the back end, obviously I would just be, with CeeDee Lamb coming back, Avonte Turpin coming back, the Cowboys are going to be fully healthy, so I'd just be sitting in zone, bend don't break. Luckily the run defense has overall been good. They were not good against the Bears, but overall it's been a strength of the team. And we did have our top run defender out against the Bears, Eddie Goldman, so if he plays, that makes a big difference to kind of limit them and make them one-dimensional. Now, granted, that one dimension could still tear us to shreds. So I think defensively, it's bend, don't break. You hope Armstrong plays and you get a little bit of a pass rush, and then you just hope to score tons of points with Terry back and hopefully improving the run game. But I think ultimately this is just like both these teams need this. The NFC is so deep right now. Now, granted, with the Eagles, like we talked about, the division could be in play, but both these teams really need this game. I don't consider the Cowboys like a playoff threat. I do consider the Commanders on that level. And Zach Ertz said himself how pissed off the locker room was at the way they lost that Bears game. So I think despite a lot of those matchup concerns, I just think the Commanders absolutely need to win this game. And if I'm right that they're the team that can actually go into the playoffs and potentially win some games, and the Cowboys are not, then they're just going to find a way to get it done. So, I completely agree. It's a tough spot from a lot of those matchup things, but I just believe in that this team, way more than the Cowboys, is the one that's going to make the plays and do the little things to get it done. And they're going to show a heck of a lot more fight than they showed against the Bears on Monday night.
I have a quick take based on what you just said, because the point of Goldman not being in was a big thing. One thing I missed in what I wanted to say was I expected typically your run defense to be better than it was last weekend. But last weekend was like very, very concerning to me, especially if a team has even a marginally decent like run blocking offensive line. Now, granted, the Cowboys' offensive line has been decimated this year, and shockingly, Dak is still getting the ball out, even on deep plays, and continuing to be able to move the ball, which is really impressive. But they were running at will last week, and the Bears' rushing offense has not been something that I've been like blown away by, but especially at the end of the game when you guys needed stops, DeAndre Swift was getting like 10, 15-yard gains, and maybe that was an anomaly, but I'm long-term outlook-wise, I'm already a little bit concerned about the pass defense. To allow the rushing attack would be a concern for me. I will say, though, the Commanders' offense, I'm not at all concerned about long-term. I'm only talking about this matchup just because Terry's just getting back and Debo's a little bit banged up and whatnot. Even though the Cowboys' defense is bad, they probably just need to get their rhythm going. So no concerns about your long-term outlook for offense. I even think Krosky Merritt will be solid rushing the football. He's got some explosiveness long-term. My concern is defensively, I don't have a lot to like hang my hat on in terms of like what I see outlook for them long-term. Like I think secondary-wise, I do agree Lane. It's nice Lane stepping up. But Lattimore is still a point of concern for me and when I've watched him this season. I also think, like you said, you've had a pretty decent pass rush, but on days where your pass rush doesn't get home, it's like a real concern for me for teams in the secondary. So I feel like this is going to be Jaden needing to score a lot of points this year for the Commanders to especially win the games against good teams. And I do agree with you that I would still take the Commanders as the better playoff team, but it's almost like I'm not saying it's a must win, but in order for you to win your division, it feels like a game you have to win because, these are the ones you need to take, especially while the Eagles are taking some losses. So it's some pressure.
Yeah, for me, it's almost more of an effort thing. Like if you watch each of their games, like the Packers game, the Falcons game, and then the Bears game, and then you compare that to the Chargers game, again, lesser opponents, the Giants and the Raiders, like the defense in those games is just simply from an effort and physicality perspective. Like they're flying around, they're hitting. Yeah, there's definitely weaknesses even within that. Don't get me wrong, but I'm like, if they just show up and play hard and play physical, it's not going to be pretty, and the Cowboys are still going to move the ball. But like that's the thing for me that's frustrating. Is it's like they've alternated, just like not even really showing up to play. Like DeAndre Swift was just breaking plays because no one wanted to tackle him. Like Quan Martin on that big one down the sideline that essentially cost him the game, which was a delay of game, by the way, but I digress. Like just horrible tackling. Like sometimes it's really just an effort thing, and that's why like concerning matchup things, but I'm like I have no question that they're going to show up and they're going to play physical and they're going to play fast. So I think that'll be enough. But yeah, I'm just like be willing to tackle them. Like it was the same thing in that Packers game and the Falcons game too. It's just like just show up and play, and then I think they'll be okay. But
well, Zach knows all about Dan Quinn as a head coach, or Well, as a head coach, yes, but it is a point of concern to me if with a guy like Dan Quinn, who's a defensive minded guy, they're having weeks where they're like, not that they're taking weeks off, but not showing that effort. But I guess he's probably someone who can coach them to be better about that because he did last year. So hopefully we'll see that. But all this to say, there's going to be an epic matchup. Like I think this is going to be one of the most fun games of the weekend. Not just because Commanders Cowboys is typically fun, but because we're seeing Dak play at an MVP level, and Jaden obviously is one of the elite quarterbacks. So it's like after a long time, we're actually watching matchups where both teams have great quarterbacks playing against each other, and that'll be fun to watch.
Honorable mention, shout out, Zach mentioned some of the wide receivers stepping up like Jalen Lane. Luke McCaffrey, Christian McCaffrey's brother, the Commanders have the best starting field position in the league on average, and that's because of him returning kicks, and he's also made a really big impact receiving because Noah Brown's going to be out for a while now as well. So shout out Luke McCaffrey, X Factor. He's played really, really well lately.
I was cracking up last week when he was just standing there like without a guy within 30 yards of him when he caught that receiving touchdown. That's
the other thing.
He put on a nice move.
That was like Cliff Kingsbury called an excellent game against the Bears, I thought. Like that was fully schemed up where they just completely bid on that. Now it was bad defense, but on that Debo screen that we use so much, and then you pop the top with Luke. Luke didn't really have to do anything. So I thought Cliff called a great game on Monday, but the turnovers. Obviously turnover margin in this game is going to be huge too. We didn't mention it, but
I'm not going to be overly critical of him because obviously he has been a great hire for you guys as an offense coordinator. I think he gets too cute sometimes. Like sometimes I see him doing some stuff and I'm like, bro, just run an option with Daniels or make the short pass. Sometimes it's a little too pretty for my liking, but that's just my opinion. He's still a good coordinator. I'm not trying to knock him. It's not that I think Ben Johnson's always the bar, but I feel like sometimes things need to be a bit more intentional. But I'm just nitpicking.
Well, that's true of Ben too. Ben does that a lot.
Yeah, but I think Ben's more successful with that. But maybe it's a personnel thing.
Who won the game last year?
Who had their entire defense out last year?
Maybe Ben shouldn't have run the reverse pass with Jameson Williams throwing it. I don't know.
Yeah, that was a Jameson Williams decision. I'm not blaming Ben for that.
Well, that's his call.